My name is Caleb Mercer. The day we buried my father, I thought grief would be the worst pain I'd ever feel. I was wrong. Before the dirt had settled on Dad's grave, my older brother stood in front of everyone and said, "I'm selling the family house next week. I need the money to pay off my gambling debts." My mother nearly fainted. I begged him to stop. He looked me in the eyes, smiled, and said, "Dad loved me more. He left me everything." 48 hours later, a stranger wearing my father's old army jacket knocked on our front door, holding a rusted metal box. And what was inside that box destroyed every lie my brother had ever told. My name is Caleb Mercer, and I grew up in the quiet town of Franklin, Tennessee, just outside Nashville. Our family wasn't rich. We weren't poor either. My father, Thomas Mercer, spent 30 years as a firefighter before retiring. He wasn't famous. He didn't own expensive cars. But everyone in town respected him. People used to say, if Thomas Mercer promised you something, you could take it to the bank. He was that kind of man. The house we lived in wasn't just wood and bricks. Dad built most of it himself. Every Saturday, he worked on it with his own hands. He planted the oak tree in the front yard the day I was born. He built the wooden porch when my mother, Helen Mercer, recovered from cancer. Every corner of that house carried a memory. Then there was my older brother, Derek Mercer. Derek had always wanted shortcuts. While Dad worked overtime, Derek dreamed about getting rich overnight. Sports betting, poker, casinos, crypto scams. If someone promised easy money, Derek believed them. Dad paid off his gambling debts more times than I could count. Every single time, Dad said the same thing. Everyone deserves another chance. But another chance always became another mistake. I chose a different path. I became an emergency room nurse. The job was exhausting. The hours were long. But helping people survive the worst days of their lives reminded me what really mattered. Dad always told me, "Caleb, you'll never regret a life spent helping others." Those words stayed with me. Then everything changed. One cold January morning, Dad suffered a fatal heart attack while shoveling snow for our elderly neighbor. He died doing what he had done his whole life, helping someone else. The entire town came to his funeral. Firefighters stood in perfect formation. Police officers saluted. Old friends cried openly. Even strangers came just to say thank you. I had never seen so much love gathered in one place. The service ended peacefully, until Derek walked to the podium. Without asking anyone, he picked up the microphone. "I've got something to announce." The room fell silent. He looked around confidently. "As most of you know, Dad left me in charge of everything." I frowned. Dad had never mentioned a will. Then Derek smiled. "So next Friday, I'm selling the house." Gasps echoed through the church. Mom burst into tears. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. "Our family home?" I asked. "Yes." "You can't be serious." He shrugged. "I owe people money. They're done waiting." An elderly firefighter stepped forward. "Your father built that house." Derek laughed. "And now it's mine to sell." The silence that followed felt heavier than the funeral itself. After everyone left, Mom refused to go home. She sat alone beside Dad's grave. "I can't lose him twice," she whispered. I hugged her tightly. "I won't let that happen." She smiled sadly. "Your father always said your heart was stronger than your hands." The next morning, luxury real estate agents arrived at the house. They measured every room, photographed every wall, talked about renovations. One of them even suggested tearing down Dad's workshop. That workshop, the place where Dad taught me how to use a hammer, how to fix bicycles, how to build birdhouses, how to become a man. I couldn't let them destroy it. While they toured the house, I quietly walked into the workshop one last time. Everything was exactly where Dad left it. His gloves, his old coffee mug, his faded firefighter helmet. I sat in his chair, trying not to cry. Then, I noticed something strange. A loose wooden panel beneath his workbench. I'd cleaned this workshop hundreds of times. I'd never seen it before. Curious, I pulled the board aside. Hidden underneath was a small rusted metal box. Across the lid, Dad had carved 5 simple words. "Only Caleb should open this." My heart started racing. I searched for a key. Nothing. Then I noticed a tiny envelope taped underneath. Inside was one brass key. My hands shook as I unlocked the box. Before I could lift the lid, the front doorbell rang. I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. Standing outside was an elderly man wearing Dad's old army jacket. He introduced himself. "My name is Samuel Rhodes. I made a promise to your father 20 years ago." He looked past me toward the workshop. Then quietly asked, "Did you find the box?" I froze. "How do you know about it?" Samuel smiled sadly. "Because your father told me. If Derek ever tries to sell our home, Caleb will find the truth." He slowly reached into his coat pocket, then handed me a sealed envelope covered in my father's handwriting. Across the front, only one sentence was written. "Read this before Derek signs anything." For a moment, I couldn't move. The envelope felt heavier than it should have, almost as if Dad had placed his entire life inside it. I thanked Samuel and invited him into the house. He looked around the workshop, running his hand across Dad's old workbench. "We built this together," he whispered. "You and Dad." He smiled. "No, long before you were born." That confused me. Dad had never mentioned Samuel. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside were three things: a handwritten letter, a flash drive, a folded legal document with a notary seal. The first line of Dad's letter made my heart pound. "Caleb, if you're reading this, Derek has chosen gambling over family one last time." I kept reading. I prayed he would change. But hope doesn't replace responsibility. Tears rolled down my face. Dad continued, "The family home has never legally belonged to Derek." I looked up in shock. "What?" Samuel nodded quietly. "I told him you'd react that way." Dad explained that 8 years earlier, after paying off Derek's largest gambling debt, he secretly placed the house into an irrevocable family trust. The trust contained one condition: if Derek ever attempted to sell the home to satisfy gambling-related debts, he would immediately lose every inheritance right connected to the property. Instead, ownership would automatically transfer to me. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Dad had protected the house all along. Not because he didn't love Derek, but because he loved the family more. Then I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. A video appeared. Dad sat on the front porch wearing his old firefighter jacket. He smiled gently. "If this video is playing, I guess my time is over." He laughed softly. Then his face became serious. "Caleb, being the oldest doesn't always make someone the right leader. I've watched you spend your life serving others. You never asked me for money. You never asked me for favors. You only asked me to believe in you." I always did. I couldn't stop crying. Dad continued, "I kept giving Derek second chances. But I could never give him permission to destroy what generations of our family built." Samuel quietly wiped tears from his own eyes. "I miss him every day." Dad looked straight into the camera. "There's one more thing. Samuel knows where the final documents are." Samuel reached inside the old army jacket. He removed a weathered leather folder. Inside were the original trust papers. Every signature, every witness, every legal seal, everything was authentic. The next morning, Derek proudly arrived with 2 luxury real estate agents and a wealthy buyer. He walked through the living room like he already owned the money. "By next weekend, this place will be gone." Before anyone signed a single paper, a black SUV stopped outside. Family attorney Margaret Ellison stepped out. She wasn't alone. 2 sheriff's deputies followed behind her. "Mr. Derek Mercer," she spoke calmly, "you are attempting to sell property you do not legally own." Derek laughed. "What are you talking about?" She handed him the trust documents. He read them once, then again. His face turned white. No, this isn't real." "It is." Margaret pointed directly to one paragraph. "Your casino debt from last year activated this clause. The moment you attempted this sale, you forfeited every legal claim to this home." The buyer immediately stood up. "I'm leaving." The real estate agents quietly packed their paperwork. Within minutes, everyone was gone, except Derek. He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "You planned this?" I shook my head. "No, Dad did." For the first time in years, my brother had nothing to say. He simply sat on the front porch, staring at Dad's rocking chair. That night, Mom cooked Dad's favorite meal. Nobody spoke. Finally, Derek broke the silence. I owe nearly $600,000. Mom closed her eyes. You've been lying to us for years. He nodded. I know. I thought one big win would fix everything. It never did. Then he looked at me. I'm sorry. Not for losing the house. Not for getting caught. For hurting all of us. Before I answered, Samuel quietly stood. I've known your father since we were 19. He taught me something I'll never forget. We all looked at him. He used to say, forgiveness doesn't erase consequences, but consequences should never erase the chance to become better. Silence filled the room. A week later, Derek checked himself into a gambling rehabilitation center. No one forced him. It was his own decision. For the first time, he chose to fight instead of run. Months passed. The family home stayed exactly where Dad wanted it. The workshop remained untouched. Every Saturday, I opened the garage door. Neighborhood kids came over. I taught them woodworking, exactly the way Dad taught me. One afternoon, Derek walked into the workshop. He had been sober for almost a year. He picked up Dad's old hammer, held it quietly, then looked at me. Think Dad would let me help build something? I smiled. I think he'd already be proud you asked. Together, for the first time since we were children, we built a wooden bench beneath the old oak tree Dad planted when I was born. When we finished, Mom placed Dad's firefighter helmet on the bench. Nobody spoke. Nobody had to, because in that moment, we realized something. Dad's greatest inheritance was never the house. It was the family he never stopped believing could heal. Greed can divide a family. Addiction can destroy trust. But honesty, accountability, and forgiveness can rebuild what money never could. The greatest inheritance parents leave behind isn't property. It's the values they teach their children. If this story touched your heart, please like this video. Bell subscribe to Untold Heart Stories for more emotional family dramas with unforgettable twists. Speech balloon comment below. If your brother tried to sell your childhood home to pay his gambling debts but later truly changed, would you forgive him? Heartbreak home.